The sun bled orange over Ouagadougou, casting long shadows across the presidential palace. President Ibrahim Traoré stood at the balcony, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. At 37, he was Burkina Faso's youngest leader, a soldier turned statesman who'd seized power in a coup 2 years prior. Promising reform and stability, his uniform was gone, replaced by a tailored suit. But the weight of command clung to him like dust. Below, the city hummed with unease, protests had flared in the markets. Whispers of dissent threading through the streets. Traoré's reforms, bold and unyielding, had made enemies, foreign powers, local warlords, and now, it seemed, someone closer, his chief of staff, Colonel Moussa Diallo, knocked and entered, his face taut. "Sir, we've intercepted chatter, an assassination plot, tonight." Traoré's jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed calm, scanning the horizon. "Who?" he asked. Diallo hesitated. "We don't know yet. Could be jihadists, mercenaries, or someone in the cabinet." Traoré nodded, his mind racing. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. He'd survived coups, ambushes, and betrayals, but this felt different, personal. The evening state dinner loomed, a gathering of ministers, diplomats, and tribal leaders. If the threat was real, it would strike there. Traoré's fingers brushed the pistol holstered beneath his jacket. "Double the security," he ordered, "and get me Captain Awa Sidibe." Awa, his most loyal officer, had saved his life during the coup. If anyone could sniff out a traitor, it was her. As night fell, the palace buzzed with preparations. Crystal chandeliers glittered, masking the tension in the air. Traoré mingled, shaking hands, his smile a calculated mask. He watched faces, Minister of Defense Kabore's forced laugh, the French ambassador's lingering gaze, the nervous fidgeting of a young aide. Awa, dressed in civilian clothes, blended into the crowd, her eyes scanning for threats. At 9 p.m., the lights flickered. A murmur rippled through the room. Traoré's pulse quickened. He caught Awa's glance. She'd seen it too. Then, chaos. A waiter dropped a tray, and in the split second of distraction, a figure lunged from the shadows, a glint of steel in hand. Traoré dove, tackling the assailant to the ground. The room erupted, screams, shattering glass, guards rushing in. The attacker, a young man with wild eyes, screamed, "For the people!" Before Awa subdued him, Traoré stood, heart pounding. As the room stilled, the man was no lone wolf. His precision suggested training. Someone had sent him. Diallo appeared, breathless. "Sir, we found a device in the kitchens, a bomb." Disarmed just in time, Traoré's mind spun. A double strike, knife and explosive. Whoever planned this had resources. He ordered the palace locked down, guests detained, and the attacker interrogated. Awa leaned close, her voice low. "This wasn't random, Ibrahim. Someone here knows more." Her use of his first name grounded him, a reminder of the shared history in the barracks. In the interrogation room, the attacker, barely 20, spat defiance. "You're a tyrant, Traoré. You betrayed the revolution." His words stung, echoing the doubts Traoré buried deep. Had his reforms, cracking down on corruption, arming local militias, gone too far? He leaned forward, meeting the boy's eyes. "Who sent you?" The boy smirked, silent. Awa's radio crackled. "Sir, we've got movement outside, armed men, closing in." Traoré's stomach dropped. The palace was under siege. He grabbed a rifle from a guard, instincts kicking in. "Evacuate the civilians," he told Diallo. "Awa, with me." They moved through dimly lit corridors, boots echoing on marble. Outside, gunfire erupted, sharp and relentless. Traoré's mind raced, escape or fight. The people called him a hero, a liberator, but tonight he was prey. Awa checked her watch. "We've got 10 minutes before they breach the gates." Traoré nodded, his resolve hardening. He wasn't just fighting for his life but for the fragile hope of a nation. They reached the palace's underground tunnels, a relic of colonial days. Dust choked the air, but Traoré felt alive, the soldier in him awakening. Awa scouted ahead, her flashlight cutting the darkness. "Clear," she whispered, but as they turned a corner, a shadow moved. A gunshot rang out, grazing Traoré's arm. He cursed, diving behind a crate. Awa returning fire. The attacker fled, but the message was clear. Nowhere was safe. Traoré clutched his wound, blood seeping through his fingers, and grinned grimly. "They'll have to try harder than that." The tunnels were a labyrinth, damp and claustrophobic, their walls slick with history. Traore's arm throbbed, but adrenaline dulled the pain. Awa led the way, her flashlight beam slicing through the dark. The gunfire above echoed faintly, a reminder of the siege tightening around the palace. Traore's mind was a battlefield of its own. Who could he trust? Diallo, Kabore, the young aide who'd seemed so nervous. The list of suspects was as long as the tunnel they navigated. Awa paused at a fork, her hand raised. Left leads to the motor pool, right to the old armory. She whispered. Traore weighed his options. The motor pool meant escape, a chance to slip into the city and regroup. The armory meant weapons, a stand against the attackers. Armory, he decided. Running felt like surrender, and he'd sworn never to abandon his people. Awa nodded, her trust in him unspoken but absolute. They moved swiftly, footsteps muffled by dust. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of rust and earth. Traore's wound burned, but he ignored it, gripping his rifle. Awa's radio crackled again, Diallo's voice. Strained. Sir, the attackers breached the east gate. We're holding them, but not for long. Traore cursed under his breath. Time was slipping away. He needed answers, not just survival. At the armory door, Awa knelt, picking the lock with a hairpin. Old habits, she said with a wry smile. Inside, racks of rifles and crates of ammunition gleamed faintly under her light. Traore grabbed a bandolier, slinging it over his shoulder. We make a stand here, he said. Awa hesitated. Ibrahim, there's too many. We need to get you out. He shook his head. If I run, they win. The people need to see I'm fighting for them. Before she could argue, a metallic clank echoed down the tunnel. Awa doused her light, and they crouched behind a crate. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Traore's pulse hammered. A silhouette appeared, holding a flashlight and a pistol. The beam swept over the crates, missing them by inches. Traore signaled Awa, and they moved in unison. Tackling the figure, the flashlight clattered to the ground, revealing a face Traore recognized, Lieutenant Konate, one of his security detail. Traitor, Traore growled, pinning Konate's arms. The lieutenant struggled, his eyes wide with fear. It's not what you think. I was sent to find you. Diallo's orders. Traore's grip tightened. Then why sneak like a rat? Konate's voice cracked. I didn't know who to trust. The palace is compromised. Someone in the cabinet is feeding the attackers intel. Traore exchanged a glance with Awa. Could Konate be telling the truth? Or was this another layer of deception? Awa pressed her pistol to Konate's temple. Talk, now. Konate swallowed. I overheard Kabore on a call. Something about a signal, tonight. I didn't know what it meant until the attack started. Traore's blood ran cold. Kabore, his defense minister, had been a mentor, a friend. Betrayal from him would cut deeper than any bullet. But there was no time to process. An explosion rocked the tunnel. Dust raining down. The attackers were closing in. Traore released Konate, shoving him toward the armory. Grab a weapon. You're with us. Konate hesitated, then complied, his hands shaking. Traore didn't trust him, but he needed every gun. They barricaded the door with crates. Preparing for a stand, Awa scouted the tunnel's entrance. Her silhouette tense. They're coming, maybe a dozen, she reported. Traore nodded, his mind shifting to strategy. The armory was defensible, but not for long. They needed a plan. He turned to Konate. You said Kabore mentioned a signal. What else? Konate's eyes darted. A name, Viper. That's all I heard. Viper. The codename rang a bell. A shadow from Traore's military days. A mercenary leader, ruthless and elusive, rumored to work for foreign interests. If Viper was behind this, the stakes were higher than a coup. This was a power grab with global strings attached. Gunfire erupted outside the armory, bullets pinging off the steel door. Traore took cover, returning fire through a slit. Awa joined him, her shots precise. Konate fumbled with his rifle, but managed to fire, his fear palpable. The attackers pressed closer, their shouts in French and Moray mixing with the chaos. Traore's arm screamed with pain, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the fight. Each shot was a defiance, a refusal to let his vision for Burkina Faso die. Awa shouted over the noise. We can't hold them forever. Traore knew she was right. The armory was a trap if they stayed too long. He scanned the room, spotting a ventilation shaft in the corner. There, he said, pointing. It's our way out. Awa nodded, but Konate hesitated. What if it's a dead end? Traore fixed him with a stare. Then we die fighting. He pried open the shaft. The metal groaning. Awa went first, then Konate. Traore followed, his wound slowing him. As he climbed, a grenade exploded behind them, the blast shaking the tunnel. They were running out of time and trust. The ventilation shaft spat them into an alley behind the palace, the night air thick with smoke and the distant wail of sirens. Traore's arm was slick with blood, but he ignored it, scanning the shadows. Ouagadougou was a beast tonight, its streets alive with chaos. Protesters clashed with police in the distance, their chants a mix of anger and desperation. Traore's heart ached. He promised these people a future, but now he was running through their city like a fugitive. Awa took point, her pistol drawn. Konate trailed, his loyalty still a question mark. Traore's mind churned. Kabore's betrayal, Viper's involvement, it all pointed to a larger conspiracy. But who was pulling the strings? France, a rival faction, or someone closer, exploiting the unrest? He needed answers, and he needed them fast. We head to the safe house in Kuluba, he said. It's off-grid, secure. Awa nodded, but Konate's eyes flickered. Traore noticed, filing it away. They moved through back streets, avoiding checkpoints. The city was a maze of danger. Militias patrolled some corners, looters others. Traore's suit was torn, his face streaked with dirt, but his presence still commanded. A street vendor, recognizing him, froze, then offered a scarf to cover his wound. God protect you, President, the old man whispered. Traore clasped his shoulder, a fleeting moment of humanity in the storm. At a deserted market, Awa signaled a halt. We're being followed, she murmured. Traore's grip tightened on his rifle. He'd sensed it too, the prickle of eyes on his back. Konate's nervous glance didn't help. Stay here, Awa said, slipping into the shadows. Moments later, a muffled cry sounded, and she returned, dragging a man in a hoodie. Mercenary, she said, tossing his knife to the ground. Says he's with Viper. Traore knelt, staring into the man's eyes. Where's Viper? The mercenary spat, blood mixing with dirt. You're already dead, Traore. Awa pressed her boot to his chest, but Traore waved her off. Let him talk. The man sneered. Viper's got eyes everywhere. You can't hide. Traore's patience snapped. He grabbed the man's collar. Tell me where, or you're done. The mercenary laughed, then choked as Traore tightened his grip. The old radio tower. He's waiting. It was a lead, but a risky one. The radio tower was on the city's edge, exposed and isolated. Traore weighed his options: pursue Viper and risk a trap, or head to the safe house and regroup. Awa read his mind. We can't let Viper slip away. He's the key. Konate shifted uneasily. It's suicide, sir. We're outnumbered. Traore ignored him, nodding to Awa. Radio tower, let's move. They bound the mercenary, leaving him in the alley, and pushed through the city. The streets grew quieter as they neared the outskirts, the tower looming like a skeleton against the night sky. Traore's wound throbbed, but his focus was razor sharp. Viper wasn't just a threat, he was a symbol of everything Traore fought against: greed, chaos, betrayal. At the tower's base, they found a deserted compound, its gates rusted but guarded. Awa scouted, spotting 2 sentries. She took him out silently, her movements fluid. Traore admired her skill, a reminder of why he trusted her above all. Inside, the compound was a maze of crates and abandoned equipment. They moved cautiously, Konate lagging behind. Traore's instincts screamed. Something was off. A spotlight snapped on, blinding them. Drop your weapons. A voice boomed. Traore froze, recognizing the gravelly tone. Viper. Figures emerged from the shadows, 6, maybe 7, armed to the teeth. Traore lowered his rifle, signaling Awa to stand down. Konate, trembling, dropped his weapon too quickly. Traore's suspicion hardened. Was Konate playing them? Viper stepped forward, a tall man with a scar snaking across his cheek. President Traore, he sneered. You're hard to kill. Traore met his gaze. You're not the first to try. Viper laughed, cold and sharp. This isn't personal, it's business. Your reforms are bad for profits, mine and my employers. Traore's mind raced. Employers, foreign powers, a coup backed by money. He needed to stall. Who's paying you? Traore asked. Viper's smile widened. You'll meet them soon enough. He gestured, and his men advanced. Awa tensed. ready to fight, but Traore shook his head. They were outnumbered. He needed a diversion. His eyes flicked to Konate, who was sweating, eyes darting. Then, a shout, Diallo's voice. From outside, Traore, we're here. Gunfire erupted, Viper's men scattering. Traore dove for cover, grabbing Aur. Konate hesitated, then bolted toward Viper's men. Traitor. In the chaos, Traore and Aur slipped behind a crate. Returning fire, Diallo's team breached the compound. Turning the tide, Viper vanished into the shadows. His laughter echoing, Traore's heart sank. He'd slipped away. But the fight wasn't over. He clutched his wound, vowing to hunt Viper down. For his people, for his survival, he'd keep fighting. Dawn broke over Ouagadougou, grey and heavy with the promise of rain. Traore leaned against a crumbling wall in the safe house, a nondescript building in Koulouba's backstreets. His arm was bandaged, thanks to Aur's field medic skills. But the pain was a constant reminder of how close he'd come to death. Diallo's team had extracted them from the radio tower, but Viper's escape gnawed at him. So did Konate's betrayal. The lieutenant's defection confirmed Traore's worst fears. The conspiracy ran deep. Rooted in his inner circle, Aur sat across from him, cleaning her pistol. We need to move on Kabore, she said. If he's working with Viper, he's the link to whoever's behind this. Traore nodded, but doubt lingered. Kabore had stood by him during the coup, shared meals, laughed over palm wine. Could he really be the traitor? The humane part of Traore wanted to believe in redemption, but the soldier in him demanded action. Diallo burst in, his face grim. Sir, we've got a problem. Protests are escalating, mobs are calling for your resignation. Someone's spreading rumors you staged the attack to justify a crackdown. Traore's fists clenched. A classic play, turn the people against him. He stood, ignoring the pain in his arm. Get me to the radio station. I'll address the nation. Aur frowned. It's too exposed. Traore met her gaze. I won't hide. They need to hear me. The journey to the station was a gauntlet. Armored vehicles weaved through barricades. Protesters throwing stones and chanting. Traore watched from behind tinted windows, his heart heavy. These were his people, the ones he'd sworn to protect. Now, they saw him as the enemy. Aur, beside him, squeezed his hand, a rare gesture. They'll listen, Ibrahim. They always do. Her faith steadied him. At the station, security was tight, but Traore felt the weight of unseen eyes. He stepped to the microphone. The nation listening, my brothers and sisters. He began, his voice steady but warm. Last night, I was attacked, not just by enemies of the state, but by those who would tear us apart. I am not your enemy. I am your servant, fighting for a Burkina Faso where every child has a future. He paused, letting the words sink in. I will not run. I will not hide. Together, we will rise. The broadcast ended, and the room was silent. Aur smiled faintly. That was you, Ibrahim, the real you. But before he could respond, an aide rushed in. Sir, Kabore's gone. He left the city an hour ago. Traore's blood ran cold. The minister's absence was as good as a confession. Find him, he ordered Diallo, and get me everything on Viper's employers. They moved to a secondary safe house, a cramped apartment overlooking the city. Traore pored over intelligence reports, piecing together the puzzle. Viper's mercenaries were linked to a shadowy corporation, Nexus Global, with ties to European governments. Was France behind this, seeking to destabilize his regime? Or was it a smokescreen? Aur handed him a burner phone. One of my contacts in the army says Kabore was spotted near Bobo Dioulasso, meeting a foreigner. Traore's jaw tightened. We go after him. The road to Bobo Dioulasso was treacherous. Checkpoints manned by jittery soldiers. Traore disguised himself as a trader, his face obscured by a cap. Aur and Diallo flanked him, their tension palpable. At a roadside market, they intercepted a tip. Kabore was at a warehouse, guarded by Viper's men. Traore's pulse quickened. This was their chance. The warehouse was a fortress, its perimeter bristling with guards. Aur scouted, identifying a weak point, a loading dock. They slipped inside, moving like ghosts. Traore's wound ached, but he pushed forward, driven by betrayal's sting. Inside, Kabore stood with a man in a suit, European, slick, Nexus Global's envoy. Traore overheard fragments. Payment, destabilization, new regime. His blood boiled. Aur signaled, and they struck. Traore tackled Kabore, Pinning him, Aour took down the envoy. But Viper's men reacted, gunfire erupting. Diallo's team breached the warehouse, turning it into a war zone. Traore dragged Kabore behind a crate, demanding answers. Why? Kabore, we were brothers. Kabore's eyes were hollow. You're too stubborn, Ibrahim. You can't fight the world. Traore's fist clenched, but he held back. Killing Kabore wouldn't undo the betrayal. In the chaos, the envoy slipped away, but Aour recovered his briefcase, documents, names, proof of Nexus Global's involvement. Traore's mind raced. This was bigger than Burkina Faso. As they fought their way out, a bullet grazed Aour's shoulder. She grunted but kept moving. Traore supported her, guilt gnawing at him. She'd risked everything for him. At the extraction point, a helicopter waited, whisking them to safety. Traore clutched the briefcase, knowing the fight was far from over. The helicopter roared over the Sahel, its blades slicing through the dawn. Traore sat beside Aour, her shoulder bandaged but her spirit unbroken. The briefcase lay open, its contents damning: contracts, bank transfers, emails linking Nexus Global to a French intelligence operative. The conspiracy was clear: destabilize Burkina Faso, install a puppet regime, secure mineral rights. Traore's reforms had threatened their profits, and they'd responded with war. Kabore, cuffed in the back, stared out the window, silent. Back in Ouagadougou, Traore convened his loyalists in a bunker beneath the city. The protests had calmed after his broadcast, but the city was a powder keg. He spread the documents on the table. This is our fight, he said, not just for me, but for our sovereignty. Diallo nodded, but Aour's eyes were hard. We need to expose Nexus Global. But Viper's still out there. He's their enforcer. Traore agreed. Viper was the immediate threat. Intelligence placed Viper in Dori, a northern stronghold near the Mali border. Traore planned a surgical strike, but doubt lingered. Could he trust his team after Kanate and Kabore? Aour sensed his hesitation. You're not alone, Ibrahim. We're with you. Her words, simple but fierce, anchored him. He nodded, assigning roles. Diallo would lead the assault. Aour would protect Traore. They'd move at dusk. The journey to Dori was grueling, the desert heat relentless. Traore's wound ached, but he focused on the mission. Viper wasn't just a mercenary, he was a predator, thriving on chaos. At Dori's outskirts, they infiltrated a compound, a labyrinth of mud brick buildings. Aour took point, her injury slowing her but not her resolve. Traore admired her, his trust in her absolute. Inside, they found Viper's lair, a command center with maps, weapons, and a satellite phone. Viper was there, barking orders. Traore signaled, and they struck. Aour took out 2 guards. Diallo's team breached the rear. Viper fought like a cornered animal, his pistol blazing. Traore tackled him, the 2 men grappling in the dust. Viper's scar gleamed with sweat as he snarled. You can't stop progress, Traore. Traore's fist connected, silencing him. They secured Viper, but the victory was short-lived. An explosion rocked the compound. Reinforcements. Traore's team fought their way out, dragging Viper with them. Aour took a second hit, this time to her leg, and Traore carried her, refusing to leave her behind. The desert stretched endlessly as they fled, Viper's men in pursuit. At a rocky outcrop, Traore made a stand, his rifle barking. Diallo called in air support, and a drone strike scattered the pursuers. In the aftermath, Traore knelt beside Aour, her face pale but defiant. You're too stubborn, she teased, echoing Kabore's words but with warmth. He smiled, helping her up. Viper, bloodied but alive, glared. You think this ends it? Nexus will bury you. Traore met his gaze. Let them try. The documents would expose the conspiracy. But Viper's capture was a message. Burkina Faso would fight. Back in the bunker, Traore prepared a second broadcast. He'd expose Nexus Global, rally the people, and rebuild trust. But as he wrote, Aour's words lingered. This wasn't just about survival, it was about humanity. He thought of the vendor's scarf, the protesters' chants, Aour's loyalty. He wasn't just a president, he was a man. Flawed but determined. The broadcast aired at midnight. Traore's voice steady. We've been betrayed, but we are not broken. Foreign powers seek to control us, but we will resist. Together, we are unstoppable. The nation listened, and the protest shifted, anger turning to unity. Traore felt a spark of hope, but Viper's warning echoed. The fight wasn't over. Ouagadougou woke to a new day, the air heavy with possibility. Traore stood in the bunker, watching reports of crowds gathering, not in protest, but in support. His broadcast had worked, exposing Nexus Global and Viper's role. The documents were leaked to international media, sparking outrage. France denied involvement, but the damage was done. Burkina Faso was rallying, its people reclaiming their voice. Traore visited Aouar in the hospital, her leg in a cast but her spirit unbroken. "You did it," she said, smiling. He shook his head. "We did it." Her loyalty had saved him, not just from bullets but from despair. He left her with a promise to return, then met Diallo in the war room. Viper was in custody, but Nexus Global's reach was long. Traore needed to act fast. He launched a purge of his government, rooting out disloyalty. Kabore was exiled, his betrayal a wound that would linger. Traore met with tribal leaders, promising transparency and inclusion. The humane side of him shone through. He listened, shared their fears, and rebuilt trust. The soldier in him planned the next move: dismantle Nexus Global's operations in the Sahel. Intelligence revealed a Nexus base in Niger, a hub for their mercenaries. Traore led a covert mission, taking Aouar's advice to heart: strike hard, but smart. With Diallo's team, he infiltrated the base, disabling their communications. The raid was surgical, capturing key operatives and data. Nexus was crippled, its influence waning. Back home, Traore faced the people. At a public square, he spoke without a script, his voice raw: "I am not perfect, I've made mistakes, but I fight for you, for our children, for our future." The crowd roared, their faith restored. He saw the vendor from the market, the old man's eyes shining with pride. Traore's heart swelled. He was their president, but also their brother. In the quiet of his office, Traore reflected. Viper was gone, Nexus weakened, but the cost was high. Friends lost, trust shattered. Aouar's recovery would take months, but she promised to return. Diallo's loyalty was proven, a rock in the storm. Traore looked at a photo of his late mother, her smile a reminder of why he fought, for a Burkina Faso where hope outshone fear. The phone rang, intelligence about a new threat. Traore smiled grimly. The game never ended, but neither did his resolve. He was Ibrahim Traoré, soldier, president, human, and he would keep fighting. For his people, for their dawn.